Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a little bit since I was on a webinar, so I do feel a little bit rusty, but I'm happy to see faces and names joining the Zoom today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kelly Sinicola, Executive Vice President over some of the professional services areas that we have here at Ferrili. Just some notes before we get started. Today's session is an interactive format, so I don't have to prep you in the beginning by saying everyone stay on mute, everybody don't talk. We're intending everybody to be able to come off mute and talk with us, and that is the intent. You can share your thoughts throughout the session. That is perfectly accepted and thoroughly encouraged. You can also ask questions in the chat window, and I will relay those to Dan so that he can answer them. We'll also send a link to the recording following the session for reference. And with that, I will introduce Dan Mongeluzi. He is one of our practice directors here at Ferrili, and he's responsible for growing the anthology practice. So Dan, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thank you, Kelly. And good afternoon, good morning to everybody who's joining today. I appreciate you joining, and I look forward to an interactive discussion on analytics. A little bit about myself. I've been in higher education for over 20 years at this point. Most of my time has been on the vendor side, working with both SunGard, now Lucian, and campus management, now Anthology. During that time, I've worked with many schools, over 350, probably closer to 400 schools at this point. And there's definitely trends that have been seen over the years. And that has prompted the discussion today on analytics. So as mentioned, today's session is a roundtable discussion. I'll provide some opening remarks on analytics. We'll talk about the current state and analytics at schools today. We'll identify some areas where analytics can play an important role in how schools operate. And then we'll talk a little bit about what can be done to prepare for analytics. My goal today is to motivate you guys that are able to join the call today to get more involved with analytics. It's something that's been discussed for a long time, and I'd like to see the implementation and the value that schools can gain from analytics implemented at schools. So I put us together a slide on terminology, and there may be some exchange of terms throughout the course of the presentation. So just to get a level base on some of the terminology, analytics, it's the systematic computational analysis of data. So that's just a very general term. And then under analytics, there's descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics. So descriptive is what has happened. Diagnostic is why did it happen? Predictive is what might happen. And prescriptive is the actions that should be taken. In addition, artificial intelligence, it's computer intelligence or business intelligence, that's business decisions based on data. And then historically, data warehouses has been the terminology used for that collection of structured data. And today you hear a lot about data lakes, which is a collection of unorganized data. So just wanted to get those terms out there as a base as we go into the presentation. So Jack Welch says an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action rapidly is the ultimate competitive advantage. And for that reason, I think there's value in looking at analytics. And there's many industries out there that have started to look at analytics and use it on a daily basis. Baseball, for example, uses analytics significantly over the years. To a baseball purist like myself, you would say that analytics is ruining the game. The fact that all Major League Baseball teams have an analytics department at this point, that they're evaluating the players that they're playing against, not only from a batting standpoint, but also from a defensive standpoint. They know where to pitch a player based on statistics. They know where to play their players based on the history of that player and the pitcher on the mound, which stadium they're playing at. There's many factors that go into it, but it's a collection of data by each Major League Baseball team that allows them to make these decisions and give them an advantage over the other team that they're playing against. We all see analytics on a daily basis as we go to supermarkets, grocery stores, and we use our loyalty cards. The information that they're capturing with those loyalty cards as you check out allows them to define what marketing campaigns that they want to do. What price adjustments can they make? What is the right price for an item that we're purchasing off the shelves? It allows them to determine inventory manage. When do they need to renew stock? And that can also take into other factors beyond what they have within their store. Maybe it's based on weather forecast, hurricane coming into an area or so forth. Based on the history, they can pull that information together and determine inventory management. And also shelf allocations. What products should they be putting on the stores? Stores like Aldi, I don't know if that's a national chain, but it's a store that doesn't offer a lot of different choices of products, but it offers the most beneficial products for the store. And that's the way that they operate their business. We also see analytics on credit cards. Sometimes we're amazed by a credit card contacting us and saying, is this a purchase that you intend to make on your credit card? Or we don't believe that this is a purchase based on your trends or what you've purchased in the past, that we think that this is something that we will approve, so they're going to reject it. They track customer behaviors with credit cards. Again, marketing is based on what you've done in the past. Customer acquisition is information that's used from your credit card. Fraud detection is the big one. We can do competitive comparisons. Chatbot support is another thing that credit cards are able to support based on the information that they have on your credit card activity. So it seems like every industry is using analytics to some form or another, and they've been increasing their use of analytics with time. So the question we ask ourselves is related to higher education. What and where are we using analytics? And as I think about that, I think back to many of the other technological changes that have happened in higher education over time. And my belief is that higher education takes time to adopt new technologies. If we look back, 20 years ago when I stepped into this, every vendor out there was advertising a unified digital campus. And if we really look at the campus today, how unified are the campus? Is the data between systems really tightly integrated? Are we still using those side Excel spreadsheets or using manual data entry between two systems? Data warehouse and operational data stores were terminologies that we were discussing 15 years ago. Back at that time, we also talked about cloud solutions and hybrid courses. How long did it take for us to fully implement LMS solutions across higher education? There were some brave souls in the beginning, but eventually we got to everybody adopting LMS solutions. Cloud solutions today, folks are just now getting on board with moving to the cloud. There were a lot of concerns about security and other things that limited our ability to move to a cloud solution, but that's really just gaining traction in the last 4 or 5 years. And then blockchain wallet I put on here just as a thought of something in the future. Blockchain is something that is talked about and utilized in certain industries today. And probably in 15 years, we'll have a similar session that we're having today on analytics, talking about why we should be implementing blockchain wallet options or functions in our schools. So at this point, there's some of my opening remarks on analytics. And I'm hopeful that we can have a discussion on how analytics are used on campus today. So at first, I'd like to ask for those members who joined today, where you have folks or you have analytics on campus, give us a little bit of information about what you're doing. Let us know your name and your school, how long you've been using analytics, what are you doing with analytics to benefit students or institutional success, what tools are you using, how did you get started? If you know, if you're the one that did it, maybe you can talk to us a little bit how you got started and what difficulties you faced. And then I'd like to switch over to the folks that maybe don't have analytics implemented and give them an opportunity to talk about where they'd like to go with analytics. So do I have anybody that'd like to join in and join the conversation as far as talking about how you're using analytics on campus today? Is anybody using analytics on campus today? So Andrew, do you want to jump in and I'm not sure if maybe you could, let me take you off. Kelly, are you able to take Andrew off mute?
Oh, I can unmute myself.
Okay, great. So Andrew, you're using analytics on campus today?
Sure, yeah, we have a variety of analytic solutions. I mean, I responded, of course, in the chat because I assume that virtually every school has some level of analytics built in right now. Maybe that's a naive assumption. But we've got probably like 8 or 9 different analytical tools on campus. And then we've got, or actually maybe like 12. I mean, we have folks doing everything from, there's people who take data and work on it from a sort of in an academic manner. So they're taking data and they're crunching it. They're using SPSS data. They're building models in, what else are folks using? SPSS data, SAS, and we have one other tool that I know sort of folks who are scholarly leaning use. And then we've got, for administrative campus analytics, we're using a lot of MicroStrategy. We've got Tableau that's deployed on campus. We've got folks using, I don't know if people are familiar with JMP, Jump Pro. We got folks using that. I'm trying to think of what else people use. I think we have people using Power BI.
Are they using these tools for, are they using it for research purposes? Or are they using it for?
No, those last 4 are the administrative side. So those are folks who are doing things like working in enrollment, working on retention, MELT. Then you have the folks who are doing, like with myself, and the reason I joined this session because of the Anthology component, you know, we have some different student engagement systems that I'm pulling data from and building that into our retention data. So we have some things that are pre-built with connections, right? Where data is being warehoused, it's being transformed and prepared, and we don't have to do a lot of pre-processing. And then we've got data sets that we pull out of systems, and then we're doing a lot of manipulation, playing with that data before we get it to a point where it can be linked to anything else in a useful fashion.
Okay. And Andrew, what school are you with, if you don't
American
mind?
University.
American.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, I'm the director of tech and analytics for American University's campus life area.
Okay. Great. Anybody else want to join as far as what you're doing with analytics on campus?
I'll jump in. Mimi Royston, American International College in Springfield, Mass. It's a similar story to Andrew. We have lots of pockets of people doing analytics. We have our residents' life using our housing system, which we do data feeds with all kinds of data into that system, much more than they need just for housing. But because they are also looking, like, from a retention perspective, we started populating that system prior to implementing a retention product, an advising product. And then we put a lot of additional data into that environment. So there's, like, canned reports, but also custom reports or querying capability that they're using within those platforms. We do have Cognos as part of our SIS, and a number of the deans and others have access to that. We do have a Microsoft BI environment. But it's I think our issue, and I'm sure this is true of others, it's the data that's in many different places that's a problem. We do not have a warehouse, so we have our own institutional data lake, we call it, or data pond, and to do some of the kinds of data requests for IR and a retention committee. So, I signed up for this because I'd like to see what other people are doing, and we will eventually go to a new ERP environment that'll be more integrated than we are today. But there will still always need tools. There'll still always be
Right.
data elsewhere. I mean, one of the things we're trying to do is take data from other systems, like we have athletics recruitment management system, ARMS, and we're keeping in our student information system all the roster information so that we can report on athletes and teams out of the SIS, not have to merge the data and manipulate it there outside.
So Mimi, let me ask you this question. Based on your response, you have many different areas that have the data focused for their area. What do you think is limiting you from pulling it all together into one spot? Do you
Resources is staff resources.
Yeah.
I'm down 2 positions, 2 out of 5 positions in
Right.
our database area. So we're kind of in a world of hurt more than
Sure.
being able to be visionary.
Yeah. So you're definitely looking, though, to go in that direction where you can pull everything into one area and then do a larger or a wider analytics on that data that you have together.
Well, and I may do it as we build out a new ERP.
Right.
That is in our roadmap to go to RFP and by 2023 start implementing. So I'm curious,
Yep. And I guess
I don't want to build anything while I'm doing that. And
sure.
Prior, unless there was an ERP, unless we select a vendor that doesn't provide some analytics platform.
Yep. And I want to jump back to that point in a bit, but let me see if anybody else using analytics on campus where you can share what you're doing for the benefit of others.
Just
Okay.
think about what Andrew said, and I agree with him. Everybody's doing something. So
Yeah, so let me turn it over to the folks and just ask that question. Is there anybody out there that has not really jumped into analytics the way that you expect you would jump into analytics on campus? And if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you would like to achieve with analytics, let's see if there is anybody on the other side. I can tell you, I've had the opportunity over 30 years to work with over 300 different clients, individual clients during that time. And there's definitely, my experience is that there's folks that talk about wanting to do it, and just not knowing the first step to jump into this and really get things going. I know there are schools out there that are having trouble getting into analytics. Does anybody want to be a brave soul and jump up on that side?
Looks like Lindsay put something in the chat, and maybe other people want to add to the chat.
Right. So Lindsay said, if anyone has a solid solution for year-to-year comparison of enrollment data, that's what I'm here to learn.
Yep.
And I know that Carol Thomas, our Senior Vice President over some of our professional service areas here, did a great webinar on that specific topic, Lindsay. It was sometime last year, so I'm going to scrounge up that link to send your way too, but I'd be curious to see how others handle year-to-year enrollment data changes. I know historically I've seen people use Excel macros to do that very unelegantly. So I've seen everything from that to manual data entry from other spreadsheet sources to, sophisticated SQL views to be able to chop up and do point-in-time data comparisons, or, point-in-time snapshot databases to refer to as well. Okay, and Andrew says we use snapshots in a data warehouse for that, then it's brought into our BI tool. Yep, so we've seen that for sure as well.
Okay, well, maybe let me go through a couple more slides, and if folks do want to jump in, feel free to jump in. So back in 2012, Higher Ed had this article out there that I found, and they're talking about the age of big data. And what they talked about was the sweeping through academia. I know back in 2012, things were not moving as quickly as anticipated. Going back to Mimi and Andrew, when did you guys start with analytics? Were you there when you started?
I think at American it predates me, but I think it probably started around 2010, maybe 2011 is my impression.
Okay,
maybe a little bit earlier than that, but in more based formats.
Yep.
So I arrived at AIC in 2013, and we were focused on a software implementation, but shortly after that project, well, and a couple of other more pressing projects, analytics or how are we going to do better with our data, and as I built data integrations to all the various best in breed products, because we didn't have those as automated integrations, that's when analytics became a pretty important thing to discuss, because we were getting different people reporting on the same thing, right, and totally different numbers.
Yep. Okay. And then 2018 is now even more critical for professionals to make data-informed decisions. So again, EDUCAUSE year to year is identifying that the data and data analytics is important for education to adopt. So a lot of times what I see is the clients that don't have analytics implemented, a lot of times it's a fear of change. It's something new. It's not knowing where to go with it or what to do with it. Other reasons would be a loss of control, feeling like, now the system's going to know what's happening at the institution. And for some people, that's a loss of control where they can run the reports and put a descriptive with that report. Accountability. So if things aren't going right, the expectation is that things need to adjust to make improvements within the campus. There is an investment with analytics, so the tools that are utilized, whether it's one tool or many tools being utilized on campus, and the knowledge and the expertise to look at the data and come up with an interpretation of the data is definitely an investment. Knowledge, knowing what those tools are, how to utilize those tools, how to look at the data accurately. And then the last reason for not analytics would be the priority. It's just not a priority on the campus versus other things that need to get done. It should be on campus for student success, for institutional success, for improving your processes, and it actually, if used correctly, would reduce cost. Andrew, you want to jump in? Any comments? Any thoughts?
No, sorry.
Yep, no problem. Anybody have any comments? So having better data definitely will provide better decisions. Well, maybe I shouldn't say definitely, but it should. If you collect the data, if you compare the data, with trends, if you look at data versus where your new vision is or your 5-year plan is, you definitely should be making better decisions to meet those goals. Areas of use, it can be used across the whole campus. Every department, there's value to implementing an analytics solution. So when you think of questions about who should be admitted or who will graduate before they even attend the school, what courses should be offered, when should they be offered, or how should they be offered, looking at programs and whether they're profitable or not, whether programs are beneficial to the school or not, how to identify potential dropouts before they actually drop out, how to improve cost, when to ask for donations on your alumni side, how to maximize scholarship dollars. These are all things that if you're asking these types of questions, you can really, you really need to dive into the data and see what it's telling you. So to jump into analytics, some of the things that you're going to need, you need to collect your source data. So you need clean data. You need to have historical data. So that's another reason why jumping into this sooner than later is beneficial. You need consistent data. So over time, as you change ERPs, your codes may change. So you need to make sure that everything's in your data lake as valuable information that can be interpreted. You can do what's the word? You can do transformations with your data, but making sure that you have a consistent understanding of your data is key. You need to choose the right tool that's going to meet your need. You will need to learn about the tool. You're going to need to have functional knowledge as well as technical knowledge involved in the analysis that you want to do. You'll want to define roles and responsibilities. Who's responsible to make sure that the data is being retained correctly? Who's going to speak to how the data is retained, when updates are happening, how the data is pulled out, and so forth. You'll need folks that can interpret the data, and maybe that's not an individual, but a team of resources. And then you need to act and take action on those the interpreted data. Anybody have other items that need to be considered when you're stepping in? Any lessons learned, Andrew or Mimi, that maybe you can offer?
I mean, I'll say that I think the clean data, historical data, consistent data part alone is where most schools that I talk to are struggling.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Transitioning from one system to another, having data in different data that's we've got one area where the GPA field moved from over 4 years, moved to 4 different fields for no good reason. But the data owners decided to do that. And, you know, how do you clean that up? And then they're not sure if it's a final, you know, is it a term? It was a term final, you know, so there's all kinds of, you know, need to now correct what is important institutional data, but the data owner was not considering it important because it was important for their operation.
Okay.
So getting your arms around what data do people need to or want that will be actionable is also really important, and it's cyclical, right? It's a never-ending circle, because
Right.
you can go and say, we're going to try and capture these 100 fields and get it clean and get it into one area so it's easier reportable. Well, you know, then you're going to need to add another 25 and another 25 and
Right.
never
And as far
ends.
as cleaning that data and getting it right, you definitely need a team of resources, right? You need the departments involved in that. You agree with that?
Oh, yes.
So as I mentioned, you want a team of technical and functional resources to be involved in the process of getting your analytics defined and to do the interpretation of it. And whether it's your IT folks stepping in and working with the departments, I think it is critical that this is a combined functional technical solution. And Ferrili definitely can step in from that technical solution and also with our functional expertise to help with setting this up, to analyzing where you're at today and figuring out what you can do for improvement. If you don't know where you're starting, or if you're already started, stepping in and helping you through the process. So what we typically do is we do an assessment, then we develop a plan and we'll execute the plan. So pretty simple. That assessment, though, of identifying or includes identifying the reports that you need. What are you looking to do? Ferrili works with our schools from a standpoint of being partners with you. We're not looking to join you just for a job. We want to be there as partners for you into the future. So we take the time to really understand who you are. And if you choose to take this on yourself, you will need to know who you are, where you're going, what you're trying to achieve. So all that analysis needs to take place. You need to, once you identify what reports you need to, and when I say reports, I'm talking about visualizations. I'm talking about, you know, doing the comparisons. That's everything included. You want to prioritize the reports. You're not going to be able to do everything that you know you probably list out, but you need to start. And once you start, then you can add on to it over time. So you will want to prioritize what information you're trying to achieve. If you try to do everything at once, it's probably going to be a burden more than a benefit to you. You'll need to identify the files, the fields, the data elements, and where those data elements are coming from. Typically, you want to pull data elements from many different systems. They may be systems on site, they may be systems outside. You know, you may need to pull down clearinghouse data for your region, or, you know, many sources out there. You want to identify security requirements. So are you providing data to the right people? Making sure that folks that shouldn't have access to data aren't getting access to the data. So role-based and data element-based security is probably a factor. Any comments?
Can you hear me?
You do want to develop a technical infrastructure requirements. You want to identify the licensing requirements. There are different levels of licensing with these tools that are out there. You want to design your data model. the security model, and a maintenance plan. So who's responsible for the maintenance of the data and the reports and the visualizations and so forth? How's it going to be trained? Who's responsible for doing the training? As people shift in and out, what's the plan there? So when you're looking at these reports or visualizations, you want to know who your target audience is. What's their background? What's their current understanding of the topic, and where are they trying to get to? What do they need to know? What is their expectation? And what messages are you trying to get across with your presentation? So you need to know what data you have. If you don't have data, maybe you need to go out to other systems and get the data, and what type of visualization is most suitable. So here's a couple of screenshots of visualizations, that you can deliver. But what is most important to me is that it's not viewed as a collective, this is a best practice solution. This is something where a vendor can come in, they can tell you that this is specifically what you should be looking at, and this is what you want to do. Again, it's unique. It's specific to your institution, where you're going and what you're doing. And it's based on your data, and no two institutions are alike. There are some basic things that you can do collectively. If you want to do a year-over-year comparison of graduate students, that's fine. That's something that's shareable. But getting to the next level of doing interpretive analysis of that data, you're going to want to know more. Why do you care about the trend? What are you going towards? Are you looking to grow? Are you looking to maintain? Are you looking for better students? So that becomes a more complex visualization that you're going to drive in that scenario. So Mimi, I'd like to come back to a comment that you made earlier, which was around, you were curious if there's an ERP system out there that has analytics built into it. And I asked you the question, do you think that that's possible, that a vendor can provide you the analytics that you need out of the box?
Oh, well, no, they're going to really provide us a platform and a tool.
Right.
Right. They're going to provide us a repository. They're going to provide us whatever data is in there, in that system that we've purchased. But, hopefully the platform is something that's configurable so that we can bring in other data sources, do some good defining of that data, and be able to make it actionable, and make it reportable, and you can start to play, right? You can start to do the analysis work.
Right.
So that's really what we have a data management committee that we've had for before I came to AIC, and that's always been system owners and data owners, and discussing data definitions and discussing certain data points and what needs to be shared amongst various systems, and so all of that is the institutional work, right? You can't put that on a vendor.
Yep, exactly. All right, so jumping back, another service that we offer is to test the model. So we're going to do the assessment. We'll work with you to do the implementation, but we also need to test it. So and part of that testing is a reporting strategy. Align your business processes in your reports. So a regular checkpoint to see whether things are on track and making adjustments. Develop test scripts. So making sure that the data is verified before it's published out. conduct unit and integrated testing between systems. We want to validate the data models that we're creating, and we want to communicate changes out to the stakeholders that are impacted by the data and the visualizations that we're creating.
Mhm.
So,
So
go ahead.
thanks, Dan. One of the things that brought me to this workshop or this webinar was the fact that you're the Anthology practice director. And I was curious about the Anthology ecosystem around analytics.
Sure.
You know, maybe you want to comment about other ERP vendors as well, because as I mentioned, right, so I'm just, you know, I am curious. Anthology is one of the ERP vendors that we're potentially looking at.
Sure. So let me just start by saying I'm a Ferrili employee, and while I have a history with Anthology, you know, I really can't speak. I'll give you my opinion, but I'm not speaking for Anthology.
Right.
I think, you know, over time that they have seen the need for analytics and have implemented solutions with each of their products. So they have an analytics solution for their student system. They have an analytics solution for their finance, HR, and payroll solution, and also for their CRM solution. They also are looking at lake solutions, you know, bringing data collectively together or offering services. My opinion is that a vendor can only take it so far, right? They can only take it so far based on the data that they're collecting. And I think there's so much more data that's on campus that will in fact impact your analysis, that that's why you can't rely solely on a vendor.
Well,
So,
the athletic rosters is probably a decent example of that, because it's rarely in your student information system unless you have someone entering it.
sure. Ultimately, I'd like to see schools not only take the data from their SIS, CRM, ERP, LMS solutions, but tie it to your regional, your state information. You know, what does your state say about birth rates? What does your state say about technical jobs versus jobs that require a degree? There's so much data that is not in the system.
Right.
That unless you're looking at it creatively, you know, they talk about, you know, females outweigh males as far as those going for degrees today. They talk about the birth rate going down for 4 years. They talk about admissions going down 15% in some regions. Well, what are we doing as institutions to make sure that that doesn't impact us negatively? How are we preparing for 5 and 10 years down the line? And that's something else that I should mention, is that this, you know, sometimes it's not quick wins with analytics. You know, sometimes it's information that you're collecting today and comparing today that's going to benefit you 5 years from now.
Right.
So that's my opinion. Anthology has solutions for Power BI. Microsoft is their framework, so they definitely base it on a Microsoft platform. I think they can help. I don't know that they can be the full answer. Other questions? For anybody that's on the call today that maybe has not implemented analytics or doesn't feel like your institution has implemented analytics sufficiently, my personal opinion, I've worked with Power Campus clients, I've worked with Anthology clients. And my opinion is that I've seen a lot more schools that have not adopted analytics than have adopted analytics. So I know that Mimi and Andrew, and I think it's fantastic that your institutions have moved forward. Everybody's doing institutional research, everybody's doing reports and publishing reports that the government requires. But that next level, if you need help stepping into that, if you don't know where to go, If your IT team is not working with you on it, or if you are the IT team and not working out to your departments, I'd encourage you to reach out to Ferrili so that we can help you, get going. And I think it is something that's needed sooner than later. Any other questions or comments? I do appreciate everybody joining today. And Mimi and Andrew, thank you very much for the interaction. I enjoyed it. If anybody
We
has
must
any
have
comment.
hit the after lunch low, but thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at over here at Ferrilli. So I appreciate your time. I think we do have another slide. So there is a website that you can go to for what's happening, ferrilli.com, and then go to what's happening. And then also info@ferrilli.com is, if you have any questions or comments, send it there. And they'll get the information to me if you have a specific question or comment for me. But again, everybody, thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.